Hi, this is Elizabeth, one of the co-hosts of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is John Lauder, host of The Cheap Seats here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, The Cheap Seats, where we talk about sports from the fans' perspective. A new show comes out every Monday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of The Cheap Seats. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media. My name is Bryce Burge.
I'm Ivan Sanchez Carrasco. Bryce, we're going to cover the Liga Mx final. We're going to give our previews for the Europa and Champions League finals. And then we're going to cover women's national team as they get ready to finally head off to France and the U20 World Cup. So a busy show.
That's the way we like to do it here, so we'll get right off to it. Let's talk with the game that has already happened. Liga Mx, their final is done and over with. Tigres taking it all on 1-0 aggregate with a scoreless draw in the final leg on Sunday. A very, very late red card was really the only thing of note in this one in terms of the standard happenings, but this was a very, very straightforward game that didn't really have a lot of payoff for either one in the second leg. This was a game that we thought was going to be a lot different. There was going to be a lot of fireworks, a lot of opportunities for both sides to show off, and in some ways they did, but in other ways it wasn't the typical fireworks you think of when you hear a close-knit game like this in a title. What did you think of this matchup?
I thought especially in the second leg, Tigres were really comfortable sitting back, absorbing pressure, really forcing and challenging León to create something and break down the Tigres defense. And I think you kind of see that in all the statistical categories when you come to shots, when you come to possessions, passes as well. But Tigres really relied on their cohesion and on having a solid defense, and the fact that, León did have some players missing out of injury and playing at the U20 World Cup, that they really challenged León to be, hey, break us down. We're not going to go all out attack here in the second leg. One, we're playing away from home, and two, we're not going to give you guys the gaps to try to exploit us here. So León had to really fight for everything and earn everything. And, it wasn't the most entertaining match in that regard because we were expecting fireworks. We were expecting these guys to really go at it, especially with all the quality on the field. And Tigres really just handled it in a very professional manner, which is something not surprising. But the fact that, it was a very interesting strategy in that regard, that they've really forced León to try to break them down, especially when we talk about the struggles they had leading up to the finals when they were really not really able to get a lot of results and to make this a really professional, drawn out game and really kind of take hold of the series in that way to make it that style.
And I think that's a big factor too, because when you have the ability to go in there just ahead of time to be that calm and kind of just focus on everything, it really kind of re-identifies your team focus. And that ability to take a breath and do what you do best is something that I really enjoyed out of Tigres in that second leg, because you got to see a lot more of the skill focus of the individual players in that matchup than you typically would. There wasn't. I talk a lot about like team focus and skill sets and what you're trying to do as a combined unit, but for Tigres in the second leg, because they were calmer, I would probably say, you could appreciate a little bit more of their individual talents to, get the ball open just a little bit, find a new way through a passing window to get the ball, maybe a little bit of off foot work, it was a lot of fun to kind of see what they were able to do in terms of just the pure spirit of the game.
Yeah, I think when you see them in a professional manner, you see the quality they have, and the fact that they have so much quality defensively, I think speaks volume to the talent they have and how well they're organized and how well they're structured. And, people are going to complain that they didn't go out to try to win the game, but the more hold on to their 1-goal lead. I mean, that's a strategy any team can have. And it's kind of, why these legs are a 2-leg series in this chess match. For the casual observer, it might not be something they particularly liked, but, it really shows how well the cohesion they have, that they can be so structurally organized, and they can make it so difficult for a team like Leon, who has Montes, who has Sambuesa, who has Joel Campbell, to break down, and how difficult it was for them to break down. And it just really shows, the maturity that this Tigres have now. And in a larger spectrum, it just kind of shows what they've been able to do when you talk about Mexican soccer in general. This is their 5th title in this decade, and just kind of shows what they've been able to build there in Tigres, where now they have 7 titles overall, and now they've gone 5 this decade. And it's just, that's really impressive to me too, the overall consistency of it and the way they've done it too.
Bryce Burge, Von Sanchez Carrasco here on Public House Media. The show is Your Soccer Passport. Let's, we've talked about that league as a whole, Liga Mx. What was your just kind of overall thought process on the league as a whole this season?
I think it's and the way they've almost not, I mean, you can almost say they dominated. They had goal difference was 10 more than anybody else. They only lost 2 games. They scored the most goals. They allowed the least amount of goals. And to have this run all the way up to the finals is really nice for them, because it was a nice surprise. Then you had the next 3 teams were the 3 richest teams in the league, or the teams whose players are worth overall the most value, in Tigres, Monterrey, and Cruz Azul. Tigres, Monterrey, yeah, Club America there too. It just kind of shows the separation they have in the quality. But I was pleased with it, besides Atlas, my team, not being very good, but that's just the kind of way it is. But it was very interesting, especially compared to last year, where, you had Pumas, a big team in Mexico, now also struggling. They finished 15th. You had Chivas, a big team in Mexico. They finished 14th. And, it's nice for me as a fan and someone who watches this, whose team isn't one of the elites or aren't one of the traditional big teams, to see a little more diversity as well when you have Necaxa in there, and you have Pachuca in there too, and you had Leon, who had a nice run. It was a enjoyable league, I think. It's a nice league. I think there's some things I would wish the league would change structurally a little bit, but I think that comes with time, and that's not a reflection on this season in general. But very happy to see Tigres win again, 5th title this decade, and they're at 7. And, Gignac, the French forward, is now 1 away from being the all-time goal scorer for that club as well. So it's nice to see projects like this, like Tigres, continue to succeed. I think that's good for Mexican soccer, that you can have a plan in the long term and go through bumps and bruises, and you'll still come out on top.
The other big club final that's happening is actually going to be on 3 p.m. Eastern Time, day of podcast release. That's going to be the Europa League final between Chelsea and Arsenal. It's going to be the second all-English UEFA Cup or Europa League final, depending on the timeline. The last time it happened was Tottenham against Wolves in 1972. But for these 2 teams, Chelsea and Arsenal, if you didn't get sick of seeing each other in the EPL, well, you might get sick of them now. This is the 198th meeting in all competitions between them, and this is the first time that that any teams have played each other in both the FA Cup final, the League Cup final, and a major European final. This is going to be an incredible matchup, with both these teams fighting for different reasons. Let's kind of go first on the Chelsea side. For Chelsea, what are they going to have to do to take home the win?
One, they're going to have to try to put the drama aside of possibly having their coach leave, which has kind of been the story the last week or so with this club, and they kind of can't seem to get out of their own way in that regard. And then you have your best player, Eder Hazard, who essentially has packed his bags and is going to Madrid. So I think if they are able to kind of put those things aside, they've been able to kind of get in the head of Arsenal a lot in these big games. And also they're going to need finishing up top. They're going to need their forwards to step up and try to find the back of the net, which has been a problem for them for large periods of time of the season. So I think if they can find any production from their forwards, and if they're able not to be distracted by the stories with their best player and coach, I think they're in a good position to win. I think, but before we get into, I think Arsenal has more to play for though than Chelsea does. I think some of their players might already be mentally checked out as well though. What do you think?
Well, when I look at Arsenal and I look at the fact that they actually have been scoring goals, then I think that they have a little bit of confidence going into it, because when you match up these teams, Chelsea needs to keep this low scoring, and a lot of that is because they aren't connecting up top. While they have some good things in the back, they're able to have their defense. I'm not sure if their defense is solid enough really to really kind of stop Arsenal. Arsenal has scored more goals in this last leg than Chelsea has scored in the last 3 legs together. It's a big gap right now in terms of the offensive production for this tournament. Now, I know that Arsenal has its own storylines when you look at the team in other leagues, plays in other cups and stuff, but Arsenal right now is the hot team in this track. They didn't need penalty kicks to barely get past Frankfurt Eintracht to just get in the game to begin with. They demolished Valencia, and Valencia, who just can't, they beat Valencia, but Valencia just had a huge win of their own against, I'm blanking on it right now.
Barcelona, they beat Barcelona.
Barcelona. And so, but it was a huge tournament cup win for them in Spain. And so, I can only think that with all of the positives that you have and all the ability to build upon that, there's enough there to kind of say, like, all right, let's focus and settle down and end this on a really good note. We can do this right here, right now, and get another leg up on Chelsea heading into the offseason for the EPL.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things as well is that Arsenal needs to win this to make the Champions League finals as well. And I think they know that in the back of their heads. But you make some good points. I think they are playing with a little more confidence from the past results. And I think enough time has passed from kind of the crap that was how the EPL ended for both of these teams, that it's almost like a one-off not fresh start, but just one chance to really almost rewrite any negativity that was their season. And for all the bad things, because if they make the Champions League, a lot of the bad things that happened to them this season can kind of be washed away. So I think I'm with you. I think if I had to pick the two, I think I'd probably pick Arsenal.
You sound a little questioning on that though. Ended that with a question.
Well, I mean, we watched them all year in the EPL too. We saw that you can't. Anytime any of these two teams got any confidence, they kind of took a step back. So, and I think that's kind of what makes this final really interesting, because we can predict and we can assume, or we can have an idea of how they're going to happen, but we've seen both these teams come out and not be consistent. And so in this big stage, it'll be interesting to see which one is more mentally focused. So I think I'm going to pick Arsenal because they have more to play for, and I think they have I think mentally they're going to be in a better state than Chelsea.
And, just to give us a quick opportunity to talk about that real fast, Valencia with that big win against Barcelona, did you have any real quick ideas about how that Copa del Rey final went?
I mean, Valencia just coming off the gates, getting 2 goals in the first half, played with a lot of confidence, then relied on their defense to kind of, because Barcelona over time are going to find ways to kind of take the game back, try to find opportunities to get in. But you saw one team play as a team in Valencia. You saw another team in Barcelona who were probably still struggling with that aftermath of that Liverpool game. And just crazy how from 2 weeks Barcelona went from possibly winning 3 titles to now being eliminated in losing a final and then losing the Champions League final in a week and a half, and now their season kind of turned into some kind of a sour season too. So I mean, fantastic win for Valencia, a team who's always kind of battling for that 4th spot in La Liga to get a result. So it's really nice to see them kind of come back after the struggles they had early in the season.
I agree. Valencia definitely relied on their defense there. I mean, Messi got one in at the 73rd minute in the second half, but really what's more important to me is that I saw 26 shots for Barcelona, but only 6 of them on target. That's a lot. That turns the flip of the script for me when I look at it, because Barcelona was able to do what they were supposed to do, but not at the level that they're expected of because of that Valencia defense. They forced them outside a little bit more, and their shots just weren't on target. It was something that I appreciated from them as they got this Copa Del Rey title. But
yeah, and that kind of shows
to head to the break.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry, running out of time. Got to cut off on the end there. We're gonna throw that whole segment in there just a last second. But when we come back, we do have international play to talk about, including friendlies, World Cups, both of the women and the U20. That's up next here on Your Soccer Passport, presented by Public House Media.
This is John Lauder, host of The Cheap Seats here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, The Cheap Seats, where we talk about sports from the fans' perspective. A new show comes out every Monday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of The Cheap Seats. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Welcome back to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media. My name is Bryce Burge. You can find me on Twitter at @ThatBryceBurge. Bryce is spelled with an I. He is Ivan Sanchez Carrasco. You can find him on Twitter at Ivan Sanchez C90. I believe. Man, did I forget a Twitter handle? I think I might.
You nailed it.
Okay.
No, you got
it. There we go. Man, it's been a long weekend. Even though that it's a long weekend in terms of like, don't have to work, it's still a long weekend because there's always a lot of stuff going on.
That's right.
Speaking of things going on, women's friendlies were going on in the soccer world. United States winning 3-0 against Mexico. Tobin Heath adding one early on, but it was Mallory Pugh and Kristen Press scoring late to get the final score. U.S. outshot Mexico 25-3, 11-0 on shots on target. With a 58% possession of the ball during the game. This one pretty much played out as much as I thought it was going to. What did we learn from this matchup?
That the U.S. squandered a lot of chances in front of goal, and if that's a little worrisome, because once you get to France and you're playing the more elite teams, you're not going to have 25 chances. And you really got to take advantage of those shots. And I thought the U.S. were really wasteful in front of goal and could have locked this up much sooner against a Mexico team who's, they've been playing a lot of friendlies. And they've kind of been, they lost to New Zealand 2-1, who U.S. took care of as well. They lost to Canada 3-0. They lost to the Netherlands 2-0. So all in the last couple of months or last couple of weeks. So they're kind of really ready for this pre-World Cup friendly to end for them, and for the U.S., I think to squander so many chances is slightly alarming. Especially, like I said, once you're playing the more elite teams, the opportunities are going to come there as much, and their U.S. strength is up top. So if they're struggling, and they're struggling to find goals, and if they can get one, we can get this more once the World Cup starts. But that's going to be my biggest takeaway is the amount of goals or opportunities they squandered with the amount of chances they created. And that can't happen once you're in a higher profile game against better elite defenders and better quality opponents.
Yeah, but this is still Mexico. And when you have a rivalry like that between the two countries, even when it's not men's soccer, in baseball, in basketball, women's basketball, there's plenty of other sports that Mexico-United States rivalry is still pretty fierce. And when you've got really only one opportunity to stop a team, you're going to put more players in defensively to stop that team in the United States. You're going to put more risky scenarios of trying to cut off passing lanes. Even though that there were opportunities that were squandered, it wasn't like Mexico didn't completely change their look in a rivalry matchup to try to get the best of them. And that's something that I thought was pretty interesting, is because even though that we talk about this every time we talk about the women's national team in a friendly before the World Cup. What are we going to learn from them? And the thing is that this was a game that we learned that if somebody wanted to just pull a pin and do the jerkiest thing ever in terms of just play long, play hard, play dirty, not dirty, but play difficult defense, then it's something that can fluster the United States occasionally. Now, at the end, though, there's going to be so many chances that just law of probability is going to come in play. But if you get a team better than Mexico trying to pull this stuff, then maybe they can score on a counterattack that you don't necessarily have. I mean, 0 shots on goal was a big number too. I thought that was even bigger than the amount of opportunities squandered. Was just that even though that you were able to have the possession when you needed it to, where you needed it to, it prevented opportunities back on the other side. So I thought that you still learned that United States could beat the collapse and set up shop defense that Mexico provided.
Yeah, and it will be interesting if someone tries to sit back on the U.S. and absorb all this pressure and try to get them on the counter. I think that's probably the best way to get the U.S., especially if you can frustrate them and frustrate them early. And I think that'll create a little desperation from this U.S. team. But Mexico were just completely overmatched in this match, and the U.S. were able to stifle any opportunity or any sniff of what could be considered a counterattack, which is great. Which is great because we talk about I've been very vocal about me thinking their defense is their weak part. Their defense and goalkeeping is the weak part of this team. So for them to take care of business when they're supposed to, I think it's fantastic. And the fact that they now have 4 straight shutouts entering the World Cup before the kickoff of it is a good sign for them as well. I mean, granted, it is Belgium, South Africa, New Zealand, and Mexico, so they weren't challenging themselves against the elite, but that's kind of what we expect from them. So it's good to see that that's what we're getting from them in these situations.
Now let's switch over a little bit, because I know that in the upcoming weeks we're going to be talking a lot more about the Women's World Cup. Maybe add a couple extra shows and stuff, and we'll see how that goes. And we're definitely going to try to give the same kind of great coverage that we did for the Men's World Cup for the Women's World Cup. That was something that we definitely wanted to do. That's something that we all agreed on. Was make sure that the equality was there, but so we'll talk about the Women's World Cup a little bit further down the line. But right now we do have the U20 World Cup still going on right now. They are heading into match day 3 in all of their groups as of tomorrow. Group F just wrapped up their games today with South Africa and South Korea. Coming down to literally the final seconds before South Korea was able to just hold on by the tip of their nose there. There's still some games that have to be played, and not every group is left open yet. Group D, where the United States are in, Nigeria, a win against Nigeria kept the United States in it after losing to the Ukraine in their first matchup, but Nigeria beat Qatar, which means that the United States has to beat Qatar in this last game to make it out of the group. Mexico is in Group B. They are eliminated, though. They've lost both of their matches to Italy and to Japan. They will face Ecuador in their last game. Ecuador needs a win and a Japan loss to move along. And then Senegal...
Don't forget, 4 third-place teams qualify because there's only 6 groups.
That's right. There's only 6 groups. Yeah.
So taking that Dumb and Dumber meme, Mexico still got a chance.
When you look at goal differential, only Saudi Arabia of the fourth. Well, Saudi Arabia has a -3 goal differential right now, but Colombia is still 1-1. So like when you look at Group A. There's 2 teams that are 1-1 right now. Group B, a team that's 1-1-0, 0-1-1, ahead of Mexico. Group C, New Zealand and Uruguay are both moving along. They both have 2 wins already. Group D we talked about. Group E, when Mali won though too, Mali came from behind and scored 3 goals unanswered to get in front and beat Saudi Arabia 4-3, which was an absolute huge game for them. But now as they're kind of moving along, there are some possibilities. So instead of just going through and having bad radio while I read you standings, what are some of the teams that you're looking forward to that may make some splashes here in this last round?
I watched the Italy Mexico. I watched both Mexico games, and I was really impressed with Italy in the first opening game. And that was a team that they were the better team over the 90 minutes, and I was really impressed with their style. And France has been fantastic so far this World Cup, getting 2 professional 2-0 wins against 2 teams that they should beat. I think it kind of similar to the way we were talking about the women's Spain national team and how they've kind of have had success at the U17 and the U20 level and all throughout. I've been really impressed with how it's kind of an organizational improvement overall. I kind of have the same similar feelings when I look at the French national team, when you look at the senior team and the dominance they've had over the last 4 years, and now you're looking at it through the youth system as well with this with the U20 team and how well they play, and not only getting results, but the manner in which they do it. There's an idea of how they want to play, and I think it's something that's been trickled down from the top to bottom. And so France, this team specifically, but also the France Federation in general and how they've mastered this and how well they've done, I've been really impressed with.
I think that's a great analysis. When you've got some of these teams that are going in there right now, this is a U20 squad, so like it's not a straight up representation equal to the team's performances higher up at the full on national level. But there are a couple of squads that you can really see that have some positives to them. I have liked France and I have liked Italy. I've liked Italy more, to be completely honest. I think that what they've been able to do has been really solid, especially against a Japanese team that I think has been very underrated. But the team that I've really liked so far has been New Zealand. I thought New Zealand has really shocked a lot of people. They've got a lot of speed near the outside, and have been really able to run up and down the field considerably. I think we'll get a good understanding of how good they are when they play Uruguay in this next game. U.S. I think we're learning more about the future and the growth of domestic soccer a little bit in a way that I know is not something that you are a fan of, just about how the sport grows in the United States. But it's going to be interesting because this is going to be a win where they should have the win, and will probably move them forward, assuming that Ukraine wins their matchup. But you could see a 3-way tie for 2-1-1 and still everybody move along. So I look at this and it's been fun so far. I know I've been kind of following it more from the sports betting perspective, but there's been a lot of great opportunities to see the future of the sport move along, especially right now with France, Italy, and Argentina. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point about how these kind of squads are constructed. You have some teams who some of these players on some of these teams have gone first team minutes. Others are still in the academy. So you have this kind of winky wonky in these rosters. But I think it more shows a reflection of how these youth teams kind of go. Or I guess in some cases it just might be a great generation of players who are just coming along, and it might not really be a reflection of the federation as a whole. Maybe they just lucked out on a great crop of young players. But I think you make a good point when you look at another federation I'm always impressed by is Uruguay, because they have 2 million citizens and they continue to produce fantastic quality soccer players, and there's like an identity to their team where they battle. They have quality, number one, fantastic skill, but they have this kind of gritty heart that you see from the senior team all the way down to the U teams, and I don't think that's an accident either. So quickly on the U.S., my opinion, I think they've played really well. The Nigeria game was fantastic for them, and they have some really nice players on here, some guys who have been getting senior minutes overseas, and I think, they are set up nicely to at least finish second in this group, which is great for them. And for Mexico, for how bad they've been, I think it is a reflection on how, I mentioned earlier how the league might need to change or something. I think this is a reflection of it, where maybe not enough youth players are getting the opportunity in Mexico to play, because instead people are playing, South American players more instead of giving young players a chance. So I think these are the kind of different things you can take away from a U20 World Cup.
Heading into the final minute here, what's your shout out?
My shout out is going to be Memorial Day. I hope you had a good one. I had a great one seeing family. Give shout out to our troops who do so much for us and who, don't get the recognition they deserve enough for what they do. Just to take a time to say thank you to, whether it's a family member or somebody, for what they've done, I think is important, and to have a reflection on it, I think is really important. So hope everybody had a great Memorial Day, and I'm looking forward to the next month as we kind of dive into the Women's World Cup.
That will do it for this show. I'm Bryce Birch. He's Yvonne Sanchez Carrasco. I want to thank Vic for his editing skills, and everybody at the Public House Media family for this show. Until next time, I'm Bryce Birch. Have a good one.